Welcome everyone to Charts Free webinar series. Today, we welcome Kim Carson of Rosen Hotels and Resorts, speaking on managing teams in times of volatility. Welcome, Kim.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tara. So I'm thrilled to be presenting today on managing teams in times of VUCA. And Lord, is it VUCA right now? But my name is Kim Carson. I've been with Rosen Hotels and Resorts for just over 16 years in a training role of some sort for the past 10 years. I've been a member of Chart for, I think, 7 years now and continue to have the ability, thankfully, to go to conferences and, of course, host some local RTFs. We actually just recently had ours in Orlando. So very involved in Chart and love it, and just think there's some really, really great tools available to us. And of course, the members and the people who attend all of the conferences are the best group of people you will ever meet. So thank you again for joining me today. I'm going to jump right in because I know that we are all very busy. And so today we'll talk a little bit about VUCA, what it is, what it stands for, and then how does that lead us to managing our teams? What are some challenges? What does it look like for the future? How do we keep people? I don't know if the same reigns true for all of you who are on today, but the Great Resignation is definitely ringing true here. We definitely are struggling to keep and find staff. Hospitality doesn't seem to be the career of choice at the moment, and certainly some of our obstacles, I can understand that. So VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Many of you at this point may have heard it. I also spoke on it at the last conference. It was actually developed by the US Army. And although it started in the military, it certainly equally applies to our daily lives, our daily careers, and certainly leadership. And I would say that it's starting to become cliche to describe our current economic and cultural environment as VUCA. So I call it the catch-all for it's crazy out there. So VUCA, how to manage in a VUCA world. Of course, understanding that things in VUCA are just living in a time that is volatile. Certainly the last 2 years has proved that to us. Think about how we have to compete today, how we have to lead today, our customer behaviors. You all are in hotels or restaurants, so clearly can see how our customers have changed over the last few years as well. And then, of course, some other things that lead to a VUCA environment are just our general political and regulatory environment over the course of the last few years. And unfortunately, things are just moving so fast at such a speed of light that we don't necessarily know what the future holds for us. So we have to build resilience in ourselves first, and then, of course, with our teams. So volatile, the rate and speed of amount of change. Uncertainty, the extent to which we can confidently predict the future. The more uncertain the world is, the harder it is to predict. Hello, 2022. Complex, the number and variety of factors. So under high complexity, it's impossible to analyze the environment. And then ambiguous, the lack of clarity in how to interpret. So when information is incomplete or there's so much information, it's very hard to draw conclusions and to make decisions for our staff. And certainly with complexity, today, it's not as simple as it used to be. We're not in terms of dichotomy where it's good, bad, right or wrong, black or white. We just have debates daily. So our complex world certainly has just gotten a little bit more complicated. And of course, it requires constant learning. All of you, we are daily in meetings on what is happening today, what do we need to learn today, what do we need to get out to our teams. So as leaders, you all have to stimulate differing views, opinions, thoughts, and allow for that environment to be imaginative and creative. And how does that relate to our topic of teamwork and managing teams? Well, we're connected in so many different ways. You all know that you're on a lot of teams, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But it's not easy to be on a team anymore. It's not easy to do it well, and it requires work, dedication, focus, energy daily. And I'm not, certainly we talk about it from a career standpoint, but all of this I think can translate for you back in your families. If you have kids and spouses, or even just your parents, a lot of this kind of translates to there as well. Superheroes. You are superheroes. And what I think leaders have always kind of been thought of it that way. We're ready to leap into action, to solve the problems, to fix everything, save the day. And I think that we will continue to do that. We're strong, we're bold, we're confident. We have the answers. People come to us for the answers. But, we have to understand that we can't go it alone anymore. Our greatest superpower is going to be vulnerable, and build a curious team that has the same eagerness as we do. And that's where we kind of have to start. But before we jump into the teamwork, I would be amiss if I did not recognize and talk about VUCA in a COVID world. I know we're all tired of hearing about COVID. At least I am. Certainly, I feel that many of us are in the same position. And once upon a time, we thought the world was stable. We thought it was predictable. We thought we knew what tomorrow would bring. Those of you in hotels, you knew what your occupancy was going to be tomorrow, and you could plan for it. And today, we cannot. We cannot plan for our occupancy tomorrow, nor can we plan for our staff for tomorrow. And that's very, very frustrating. So producing output while minimizing the friction is really difficult. All right, so COVID, volatile. Changes due to COVID are taking place every day. Do you all agree? It's unpredictable and certainly dramatic. I feel like I get worried about saying this, but I hope we're moving out of that. And uncertainty, no one can predict with confidence when the pandemic will be over. Vaccination is here. So certainly there's a lot of conversation around that, but it's still a lot of uncertainty out there. Complex. It is affecting every single aspect of our life, and it may have affected a lot of you. Maybe you've switched jobs, switched careers. You have family that has, you caught COVID, you had to stay home. So healthcare, business, economy, our social life, it's just so very complex now, and certainly something we never all thought we would be living through in our lifetime. And then, of course, ambiguous. You all have, handbooks on how to deal with COVID and what our COVID practices are. There's no best practice that can allow us to successfully manage the challenges, and it changes. Thankfully, not as much now as it was changing last year, but certainly we're still there. So what does that mean for what's in store for our future? I think we will see. But from a teamwork standpoint and team building, so teamwork and team building, they are three different things. And so the picture kind of shows that a team is those with a common interest. That is your full team. We're all coming together to work on an activity. But then you have teamwork, and that's a collaborative effort and really more what we look for. It's the process. Team is people, teamwork is process. And then we have team building. I like to talk with my hands if you haven't noticed. Team building is the action. So it's the productivity. People, process, productivity, all parts of building a successful team. So we are all on many types of teams. You belong to probably more than one. And of course, this is professional and personal, although I'm listed here more professional. And a permanent team. So these are functional, everyday, department, cross-functional, your virtual teams. Many of you stretch across many different states, empowered. But then there's others that are just adjunct. They might be for the day, might be for the week, and that's really for a task force, might be for a restaurant opening. Maybe you have a problem that needs to be solved and you pull together your best team members for that. So there's all sorts of different teams that you could be on in different ways you're going to have to manage those, and understanding kind of where you go from there. So I just want you to take a minute, and maybe we'll take like 30 seconds to write down or think in your head all of your current teams. How many, and maybe a couple of the different teams that you're on. And if you want to put a few of those teams in the chat, that would be great. So we have operations, menu development, risk, most problem solving, HR. I'm on the HR team as well. So you all can probably come up with half a dozen very, very quickly: hiring, training, executive committee, learning and development, and it goes on. And certainly understanding that each of those have good and bad qualities. I think you all would agree. So what is it? Oh, let me close the chat here so you can see. What is it that sets great teams apart from a bad team? And usually in my in-person training, we'll take out the flip chart, we'll write some good and bad on there and understand, kind of what we may need to shift away from or what we need to continue doing more of. And you see on the screen here some great teams out there, some teams that get it right all of the time. And understanding that there truly is no bad teams. It's a bad leader. It starts with us and how we're leading our teams. I do want to share some of my teams, and you all can kind of include all of yours and think of what your teams are. It's my family. It's my work family. It is my chart family. I really just get to be a part of so many neat teams, and I learn something from all of them. And I think that that's what's most important for you, understanding who your teams are and how you can continue to make them better and what the art of teamwork brings. The amount of time employees spend engaged in a team in collaborative work has increased. If you've read my article, has increased by 50%. And it takes up to 80% of their time. They don't have time left to do anything else. And we are now on today, maybe from 5 years ago, we're on twice as many teams as we were 5 years ago. So if you were on a dozen 5 years ago, now you're on 24, and that's a lot of work. And we have a natural need for inclusion. So as every individual on your team is different, so is every project, every team. You can't go at it the same way. And that's what makes the pretty picture, makes the art, right? We want to increase our effectiveness and build our relationships. How do we do that? Why do we stand alone? Firstly, our institutions and schools, we always were told that we had to be the best, right? You wanted to get an A. You wanted to be on the best team. You wanted to be on president's list or wanted to, do the oration contest. So many things that we have been put in competition to be on a team. And we have to kind of step away from that. We have to understand that true teamwork comes from dropping these things. Our ego. It's a big step in your development when you realize that other people can help you do a better job than you could do alone. I know for me, I couldn't do my job alone. I have some incredible team members who have some incredible strengths. And understanding that today's leaders, we have to take our armor off, put our ego aside, and give everybody else a chance to step up and lead. Next is our insecurity. Some individuals just fail to promote teamwork and want to have more on their team because they feel that their position or their job might be threatened, or maybe their growth is threatened. You have to step away from that to be a good leader and lead a good team. Being naive. Some people underestimate the difficulty of achieving big things. We have a very, very large project going on here at my office right now, and I am part of a human resources team. So a lot of my roles, I step outside of learning and development as well. And it's taken over a year and almost everybody in the office to collaborate on that. It would be impossible to think that just the director or just one team could have done that on their own. And then lastly is temperament. I don't know all of you personally, but a leader has to be outgoing in many ways and not think of terms of just team building. You have to kind of be a little bit more broad and be willing to put yourself out there. What are the benefits of teamwork? Well, we involve our team. We can do more than one individual. Maximize your position for being accountable and sharing credit for victories and blame for losses. How many of you, want to take the load for your team when something goes wrong? We're all in. you know the song, we're all in this together. And you kind of have to just keep that understanding, and that when one person breaks away, that's where your break is. I want to share this activity really quick, and we're not going to do it because you have to be in person. But if somebody happens to want to do this training in their workplace, I think that it's an incredible visual for what teamwork and kind of just our energy levels are. So you'll see on the screen that it's an energy stick, and I don't know if you can all see it now. It's just this little clear science activity. And the goal is to light up the teamwork stick. So what happens is all of us would have to physically connect with each other in one form or fashion. So we would hold hands, but one person would be holding the energy stick. So you have the one side. If it's let go, but you have to all keep your hands. If I hold both sides, it lights up, it makes noise. If I let go, we lose the energy. Losing the energy just by one person not pulling their weight on the team, not joining the team, not wanting to make sure that we're reaching our goals, our objectives. It takes a team, both of us, both hands, all hands. I think it's a really great, it goes really well in any in-person meetings because I think the visual of just one little thing letting go is really important in how we can show we can be effective. And then we can figure out the who, the what, and the why, right? Who is not pulling their weight, what or why? What is going wrong? Instead of just blaming. I hope you get to do that activity. All right, so I'm going to just recap. We've talked a little bit about what a responsibility as a leader is, but we also have to focus on the big picture. So what's in it for me, all about the team and seeing the big picture. So every person, of course, has that role to play, and it's your job to keep that vision. So who are the players? Well, the players, wrong person in the wrong place is a regression on your team. The wrong person in the right place is a frustration and most likely someone who's going to be leaving your company. Right person in the wrong place, again, someone who might be leaving your company, and that's going to be confusion. So how do we move forward? It's the right person in the right place at the right time where you get progression and multiplication. So you must know your team, know the vision, purpose, put them in their place. Because when people are in the wrong place, it impacts your team. You must know the situation and you must know the player. Evaluate the skills, put people where they are strong. Although we want to get people out of their comfort zone, we want to put them where they add the most value. Find the strength of your players. So which player are all of you? Think about it, kind of marinate on that. You know, winning teams have players who make things happen. You know, you'll notice I'm Tom Brady. I'm not a Tom Brady fan, but he is the best. There's a reason why he was successful. 90% of successful teams. So, you know, understanding where winning teams come from. Great teams have someone who knows what they're doing. Mediocre teams have a few people who want to take the lead. So there's three kinds of team players. One is people who want the ball and should. That's Tom Brady. People who want the ball but shouldn't. I won't necessarily mention those. And then people who don't even want the ball at all. You know, thinking back to your grade school years, or maybe even now if you're in some team sports, how many of you remember standing around when it was time to play kickball? And you had two clear captains. We wanted our name called first. As it kept trickling down, as it keeps trickling down, and you are the last one standing, it meant that you felt like you were not the gifted one. It meant like there was no other choice but to choose you. We don't want to be that person, and we don't want anybody on our team to feel like that person. So how do we turn them into rising stars? And I know I'm going fast. I'm happy to share more information with anyone at any time because I think it's a really great training to have for your leaders across the board. But I definitely want to get all of the information to you. So there are reasons to honor and develop the players who maybe were bench starters. So maybe you feel the same way as well. Today's bench players, maybe tomorrow's stars. The success of our support team multiplies the success of the starters. There's a reason the bench is there, everyone. They got to give us a break, too. There are more bench players than starters on a basketball team. There's 5 starters. How many people are on the bench? At least a dozen. A strong bench gives the leader, the coach, more options. It builds your depth. The bench is usually called upon at critical times for the team. You got to throw a Hail Mary. It's likely going to be to your bench players because they're the ones who are stepped up and they're ready. And then a bench player plays correctly will at times be more valuable than starters. If you all have favorite sports teams, you've probably followed them for a long time. And you say to yourself, why aren't they starting that player? They should be on the starting lineup. You know what? Sometimes when you can bring someone in who's off the bench, who's had the rest, who's ready to go, who can amp up the team, that's going to be someone who's more valuable for you. And especially today, we need rested people. You'll notice I am a Florida State fan, so I have to use my team somewhere. Great teams have great depth, but how do we get there? There's reasons to honor and develop the players who may not be considered starters. And you all have maybe heard this before. I'm not sure. It's the 10-80-10 rule. How do we build an elite team? And how do we build it today in these times? You have your top 10%. So those 10%, you really don't have, they're very self-motivated. You don't really have to do a whole lot for them. They're disciplined. They want to be great. They want to grow to, and maybe in your company, it's a director, it's a general manager. They want to be elite, but that's only 10%. The leadership challenge for you is to move those people out of the 80%. If we can expand that top 10 to maybe 15 or 20, we're going to have some serious performance. So 80% is where the majority lives. They show up, they do their job, they're reliable, you can count on them, and they'll get done what you need them to get done, but they won't go any further. So as much as we love our top 10%, we know that we can count on them, we know we can go to them. We don't really need to motivate them. They're doing it all on their own, or they're watching you. To be fair, they're positive, they're high achieving, and they're going to bring those other 80% people up as well. Now, sorry about that. Jumped ahead. That bottom 10%, they're likely not going to be on your team very long. Don't spend a lot of time on them unless you really, really feel a pull, because they're defiant, they're disinterested, and you're really probably going to waste your time with them. Challenges, teamwork. Teams are not for everyone. We know that, one of the interview questions common is, how do you work well with a team, or do you like working on a team? Of course, in an interview, everybody always says yes, right? Change stinks, for lack of a better word. It's hard. Morale. I don't know how you all have been in the last 2 years, how you've had to build your morale, but given all of the different things that are going on, whether it be COVID, whether it be political, whether it be our mental wellness, our families, our financial, morale is just really taking a back seat. So we got to get that back up there, and we've got to give it our all for our teams. If there's a lack of leadership, there's going to be a major challenge, and unclear roles. Your team, and this is okay, guys, your team, you as a leader, may not be for everyone. The strength of our team is impacted by our weakest link, and understanding that not everyone will take the journey. Some people don't want to change, they don't want to grow, they want to do exactly what they've been doing for the last 15 years. Then you have the people who not everyone should take the journey. It's just not the right place. And then lastly, you have not everyone can take the journey. Understanding that people may not just grow in their area of responsibility. They don't want to work on themselves. They don't want to work with the rest of the team, and they can't fill your expectations. It's okay to let them go. So some of the challenges, these are barriers to managing in our VUCA world. If you can't handle change, you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you can't handle change, you can't work in the workforce today. That's just unfortunately the way it is. Refuse to accept our evolving world, and I think more now so than ever. People don't want to move away from what is tried and true. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? We've got to move away from that. And then paralyzed by fear, because it's just a failure to act on those things. So how do we build our morale? 5 truths. Attitudes have the power to lift or tear down a team. Great talent can be great, but if they have a bad attitude, your team is not going to be successful. You need someone who has a great talent and a great attitude. Of course, bad attitudes spread, so an attitude compounds when exposed to others. Attitudes are subjective. Someone with a bad attitude may not do anything technically wrong or unethical, just the leader doesn't like it or the people on the team don't like it. So it's more things that we see that are somebody who wants to hog all the credit, or jealous, only about me, inability to admit when they're wrong, those kinds of things. And then lastly, of course, rotten attitudes left alone ruin everything. So what does it look like for your morale? When you're winning, nothing hurts, right? If we're on top of the world, we're the Super Bowl fans. Right now, we're the Super Bowl fans, and nothing hurts. High morale is the greatest exaggerator, elevator, and energizer. It is great. I'm going to say that, but you have to maintain it too. So as a team, when your morale is great, everything seems good. Everybody's feeling good about themselves. The performance is on a new level, and you can find that. No mountain seems too high, no project too difficult, and because of the momentum, the energy comes with it. Now, as a leader, when morale is great, managers protect what they have, and you are your team's biggest fan. You always go to bat for them. You base your decisions on the right information. Remember where you came from, commitment to the team, and of course, a conviction of no promises. Kind of understanding how we lead with our courage and understanding that we don't have to settle for that. So teammates must be able to count on each other. We have a new word, and I love this word because we take on a lot of responsibility as leaders and accountability, but how about employee countability? So it's the ability and desire for teammates to work together toward common goals. So team members who can depend on each other only during the easy times have not developed accountability. Have faith in your teammates no matter what happens. Put the responsibility back on the employees. And then, of course, employee accountability is the responsibility of the leader. Conflict, of course, not all conflict is bad. I know that it's hard, but it does lead to growth. It leads to changes. It brings creativity. And in general, it's just a high energy, unfortunately. But the negative, it does have some ineffective teams, a disagreement, arguments, unfortunately cause people to lose trust and then possibly lose those team members. So coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a progress, and working together is a success. I'm wrapping it up, but I just want to talk a little bit about the future of teams. I talked about the Great Resignation earlier and how we have to move forward. What we do today builds tomorrow. And I've said before, I think all of you probably have said, well, before COVID, we no longer can say before COVID. It is now today. We can't do what we've always done before. We just move on from here and we've learned new. So the future of our teams are predicted by 3 things. First of all is going to be recruitment. Who is joining our team? And I know recruiting is very hard right now. If any of you are on a recruitment team, it is brutal. But it's also training. All of you as trainers and developers, we have to invest the time and maybe the money to develop and engage our teams. It may be in a form of training or education, but it also may just be in the form of team building. We just have to continue to engage them and empower them. And then losses, who's leaving the team and why? Behind every great team is an environment where we make mistakes, we take risks, we share new ideas, we voice concerns, but we don't punish or blame anyone. So if those people are leaving the team, let's figure out why. So team building. I know it seems cliche. I know that you're probably doing them, but team building sometimes has to be intentional. So for your meetings, make them fun and interactive. I know if you're all with chart, you are fun and interactive. We all do icebreakers. Structured activities. So you could have a facilitator or team led, but sometimes it's just great to have an informal conversation. Lunch and learns are a great way. We have a very different structure than, if you're in a restaurant where it's just so evolving. In a hotel environment, we have the ability to kind of do structured classroom programs and things like that. So you can piggyback also on company sponsored events. It's just important to take that time to build your team. So investing in your team, and this is just a quick review of things that we talked about, compounds over time. Make the decision to build a team. Invest in them. And right now, a lot of that has to do with wages, nothing we can necessarily control. Gather the best team possible. Elevate your team. Pay the price to develop the team. Do things together. Don't leave people out just because you're in a rush. Take the time to explain it to them. Empower them. If you give them responsibility and authority, it'll raise you up. Give credit for successes to the team. Watch to see that investment in the team is paying off. Stop your investment in players who do not grow. How many of you have had a team member that you've looked at before and you say to yourself, I know they have it in them. I'm going to help them. I'm going to get them to the top. 9 times out of 10, that will not be successful for you, and you have to invest in the rest of the team too. There is going to be that 10%. I know that you're going to find someone and you will build them to be so successful in their career. So I'm not saying to always give up. I'm just saying that there are times when you have to move on to the next person when you're managing a team. Create new opportunities. And then lastly, give the team the best possible chance to succeed. You have to have a high return. You want them to show it, not only to your customers, but to the people who are going to make decisions for them. So all of this just goes to say that we really just want to build teams that today in this world and this environment can be successful. And it starts with you as the leader. And it starts with you being flexible, being open, and managing in that VUCA world. That's all I have. I really appreciate you all joining me today. It was fast and furious. Some of the activities do allow for some more open dialogue with individuals who have that experience. But I love to open it up for questions to see if anybody has anything else they'd like to know.
Okay, thank you so much, Kim. Yeah, there's a Q&A section and a chat section, but if you guys can send it into the chat section, that is great. I have a couple of questions here. The first is how does VUCA leadership translate to the line level associates and managers?
Right. So, VUCA seems like it's a very complicated word. And sometimes when we're sharing with, the hundreds of line level managers we have, how do we say, you have to lead in a VUCA world? Tell them that it just requires us to be flexible, not be stuck, and throw that planner out. If you have a plan in place, it may just not work, and be okay with stepping away from it.
Okay. And our second question is, how can you keep happy, productive teams when everyone's resigning?
Yeah. So, I know I mentioned the Great Resignation in my presentation, and many of you are probably dealing with it, depending on the market that you're in. But how do we keep them happy? I think at the end of the day, we have to make them feel value. I think we have to, make sure that we're providing them opportunities, and be willing to spend our time, energy, and maybe a little bit of money on them, but also invest in their mental wellness.
Okay, and I don't think we have any other questions. One other that was just asked is, will this be available? It will not be emailed. You will get an evaluation that you would ask me to fill out, but it will be recorded and available on our website under webinars on demand by the end of the day. And you can feel free to look at it there or share it with the link with anyone you want. Okay, I don't think we have any other questions. Kim, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to present again to us today.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Have a great week.
Bye, everyone.